everyone. Welcome to Men on Fire. My name is Mike Wren, a former mechanic and engineer turned transformational teacher. And each week I'll deliver an inspiring message to help you excavate those repressed inner negative feelings and install new thoughts that will finally allow you to truly become the person you were born to be. Welcome to another episode of Men on Fire here on Soul Mechanic TV and Soul Mechanic Radio. Now, as you know, my company is called Infinite Success Academy, and as such, I want to start delivering more messages around raising your awareness on how you can become successful in life, and that includes financially as well. So, that brings us to my very special guest today, Sarry Ibrahim. Now, Sarry is the founder of a company called Financial Asset Protection. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? And after learning about the infinite banking, bank on yourself, and thinking like a bank concepts, he saw an opportunity to save retirement accounts, real estate properties, and businesses from market failures and other risks as well. So Sarry believes the number one rule for your money is to make sure it lives somewhere safe and accessible. And as Sarry states, when working with clients, it's never an either or situation, it's both and situation. And Sarry earned his MBA from the Keller Graduate School of Management in Chicago, Illinois, and has a wealth of experience consulting with companies like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Allstate Insurance, Humana, and Cigna Health Spring as well, and is working with businesses and entrepreneurs and people just like you. Now, Sarry is based in the U.S., but I want to assure all my Canadian listeners that the principles that Sarry speaks of here are, at least for the most part, applicable in Canada as well. And I have to do this legal stuff. I have to mention as a disclaimer that this podcast is provided to you as entertainment in order to show you the options available to you. It's not to be construed as financial advice or as a guarantee that the strategies presented here will work for you. Okay, done with that boring legal stuff. Let's get on to the good stuff. Okay, folks, here he is live virtually is Sarry Ibrahim. Hi, Sarry. How are you today?
Hey, Mike. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm glad to be here, and I'm excited to chat with you.
Yes, right on. I'm so excited to have you on the show, and I know folks are really going to be interested in what you have to say, some of your innovative thoughts on money and finances. And I thought if we just start, maybe you give us an idea of your background and how you came upon some of these, in my way of thinking, advanced concepts of thinking like a bank or banking on yourself and infinite banking.
Yeah, thank you for that. So really this journey kind of started when I was growing up. I was always very curious. I always wanted to learn how the world worked, like more than I could handle sometimes.
That's a good
and I started really when I was a senior in high school. Everybody had to take a class called consumer economics, and it was how to write a check, what is interest, what is a mortgage, very basic financial literacy, which I think is very important. I think that schools should have more of that, like more often and more types of financial literacy courses. But anyways, I really liked this, and I liked the idea of money and credit and things like that, and kind of more from the standpoint of being able to help people. That's kind of like one of the careers I wanted to do. I didn't really know what that career would be called, like, financial consultant or financial advisor, financial planner. Sure. I didn't really know. So went to college after that, still wanted to do something near that kind of area of money. I got my MBA with a concentration in project management. And that kind of opened up my eyes more to like high level business, like companies greater than, 5,000 employees, how they operate, things like that. Not really relevant, right, to helping people on a daily basis, right, on an individual basis. But one job I had that really it was one of my favorite jobs. And I was working at Allstate, and I was helping people with very, basic auto insurance, homeowners insurance, nothing too crazy. And a lot of times I noticed that clients were comfortable talking to me about their financial situation. They would say, all right, well, I make, 80,000 a year. I have to put aside this amount for taxes, or I already get taken out for taxes, like X amount taken out for taxes,
Right.
which leaves me with this amount for my insurance. I think it should be less than 1% or 2%. Now I start to think like, all right, this is how you can help people by sharing these kind of ideas with them and having them express their talk about their finances, right? Talk about their finances with a professional and a professional in different areas. So I
Hmm.
was like, all right, that actually feels good. It's not about the insurance, right? It's not about the brand of the company you're working with or any of that stuff. It's more about the people you're working with and then
For
getting
sure.
down to the bottom of things and being able to help people solve financial problems is actually it's very rewarding and it lifts a lot of stress off of their shoulders because people a lot of times think that they can't do that. They think that if
Hmm.
they are in financial struggles, the only solution to their financial struggles is that money to replace it. And that's simply not true. In other words, you could take somebody who has, $100,000 in debt,
Hmm.
give them that $100,000, and then tomorrow they'll have 10 new other problems.
Hmm. Oh,
So
for sure. Yeah.
yeah, so in other words, they need to talk to professionals about how to not only what to do with their money, but it's more of a behavioral things that need to be addressed and
Yes.
how you deal with yourself and how you believe in yourself reflects heavily on money.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think a while ago there was some stat floating around that within 3 years most lottery winners are broke.
Mhm.
So that doesn't surprise me because they didn't learn how to use that money in constructive manner. It's just they want it, but they just spend it the way they always spent it. So it doesn't take long to go out the window, pretty much, other than maybe buying a few things, like a home or a car or something. But, that it's exactly what you're talking about. And I like that you touched about when you were in high school and you actually had the economics course because they didn't have that when I went, but that was 70, mid 70s to 1980. So, which I didn't know my parents were German immigrants to Canada, and they just worked hard. That's all they knew how to do. They did the best they could in advancing themselves in their positions, and they did very well at it. But they were just with jobs, right? Which you sometimes say just over broke with a job. So they didn't really know, and I got the impression, it was always hard. Well, we only have so much money. Money doesn't grow on trees. And when you start with that kind of mindset, then you start to think that money is not a good thing. And then even in certain beliefs in certain circles where you the money is actually it's evil to have too much money or whatever. So but for me money is for making things happen, and you can help a lot of people with it. So you touched on that, and that makes me feel good if there's more high schools starting with that, to at least explain the basics. I mean, they really should almost explain how banks work. And Shark Tank. I watch Shark Tank sometimes, and the sharks get ticked off when people don't know their numbers.
Yes.
So maybe you could touch on knowing your numbers and maybe how to keep track or how important that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of our key focuses when we deal with clients, right? Is like when people ask what are the keys to financial freedom, and one of the first ones is know your numbers.
Hmm.
And what that means is know like how much you make, know how often you make that money, know how much you have in savings and assets, the value of those assets, how much debt you have, where that debt is, what kind of debt it is, how often you pay that debt, how often you spend money in different places. And then the second part of that would be what are your goals? Is it to reduce
Hmm.
debt, to increase income, to increase the value of certain assets? And those are all different, right? They're all different for different people and different scenarios. And then the third step would be is that you need them to be as unique and as relevant as possible to yourself. There really is no standard guideline for financial freedom. There is no like, all right, everybody do these three things, and then like you'll be out of. You have to have specific goals
Yes.
that are relevant to your life and that matter to you. Like for example, if you have, for example, a lot of credit card debt, I would recommend that you pay those off because credit cards are really high interest
Hmm.
and they're on your personal credit. So there's a lot of negative implications from that. But if you have, for example, $80,000 in student loans at 3% interest, deferred and amortized over 20 years, then I don't really see any urgency to pay those off tomorrow,
Sure.
if you were given that chance to. So
No.
you want to evaluate these things, not just look at debt as all debt and not just look at income as all income. Like you need to differentiate it and have different goals for different things. And then have somebody to talk to, right? That's really important. Have a professional. And then I work with a lot of high net worth individuals, and I see
Hmm.
how they think about money, and I see how they function in a lot of different places in their life.
Yes.
And one thing they do is they have different professionals for different reasons. Like they might
Hmm.
have their accountant that handles their taxes and their bookkeeping. They have a financial planner or professional that's going to handle their investments long term and short term and things like that, and pivoting. And they might also have a business coach who helps them coach them through their business. And all three of those people might have overlapping functions, right? But
Right.
they have their own expertise that they deal with. So I think you need to start with some people on your, as they call it, your money team, your professionals that you have working with you. And it helps tremendously. Like you see a huge impact between people who have these mentors and coaches and people who
Hmm.
don't.
Yes, I totally agree. I mean, really, we need a lot of coaches in our lives,
Yes.
for every different area of our lives, and some of them work with us for a very small sum. Some, if you need a business coach or something, might be a little bit more, but they're going to get you to places where you want to go,
Yep.
and hold you accountable too. So I'm a big believer on the numbers. I remember years ago, when it was just telephone banking, there wasn't any online banking yet. And it was in the 80s, so there wasn't really the internet wasn't around. And I started writing down on a piece of paper because I had my first son at that point, and I said, okay, we got to have a budget here, right? And I'm saying, well, where's all the money going? So I started writing down every little thing, whether it was
Mhm.
a large expenditure or a chocolate bar sort of deal. So I wanted to find out where this money is going, and that's it showed me, okay, I can't spend this money here, right? And that's about knowing your numbers, and in a very crude format. But it's very important, and thank you for touching on that. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was real estate. I know you're involved in some real estate investments and can advise on those sorts of things.
Mhm.
I was also a realtor for a number of years,
Mhm.
and so primarily, people feel when they buy a home, it's going to be a long-term investment because they're probably going to pay it off in maybe 20, 25 years, and hoping that the value grows in the home. But it's not always as clear of what kind of money you're going to get back, is it? I mean, depending on the interest you've paid and all those things over the years. So I thought if you could touch maybe on homes, and is it still a primary way to make money or get some money back, or with the economies now, I know up here in Canada the prices are nuts. So so I wonder if you could touch on that for us.
Yeah, and you're right. Yeah, so prices are going up. That's one of the benefits. I think too, so there's two kind of avenues, right, with real estate. One of them could be cash flow, like on a
Hmm.
monthly basis that you earn income on, or that is your income. And
Hmm.
then the other could be appreciation, like you park money somewhere, and over time it inflates, it grows, it accumulates, it increases in value. And both of those have, and sometimes it could be both, right? You're doing real estate for both reasons, for cash flow and to accumulate.
So the
um,
cash flow is like a rental, let's say, or
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Rental income that you have, and then after expenses, you have some left over that your positive, inflow, positive cash flow. That's your typically you could spend that money, and then you have your value. Like for example, I know like in Toronto, right, or like
Hmm.
in San Francisco or New York City, or pretty much all over California, because the values of the homes are so expensive, they typically appreciate more than other places in North America for the most part.
Yes, yes.
And in those types of markets, people are going to be more concerned about just parking money somewhere, even if they're earning rental income on them. If they're breaking even, they're still making money long term, just having,
Right.
instead of the money sitting in the bank or
Hmm.
instead of the money sitting in the stock market, it sits in these high appreciating real estate markets.
Hmm.
And then that's kind of their goal. It's just, I want $100,000 to double, in 10 years from now, or whatever the case is, whatever that number is. That's
Right.
kind of the mentality. So I think it's both of those are still relevant till today.
Hmm.
And then it goes back to like your objectives, like what is it that you want to do, right? Are you trying to use real estate to replace your income. If
Hmm.
that's the case, then you want to get into rentals, and then you want to get into rentals in the right markets where rentals, that's the target point of it. It's not the appreciation; it's more about the rental income. And then and then you want to also figure out how much cash flow you need. Like if you make $10,000 a month from your day job, and then you want to replace that, you would need, let's just say, 10 properties or whatever the math is. So
Sure.
yeah, I think, yeah, real estate is definitely still relevant today and still a good way to earn which are whether it's cash flow or accumulated value. I think that too, one thing I'm getting more involved in
Hmm.
is passive real estate investing. This is
Right.
where, for those who don't know, right? Like it's where you don't do any work at all. You just invest in real estate deals passively,
Hmm.
and typically for cash flow reasons, right? It could be for accumulating value over time, but it's mainly for cash flow. So like I would take, for example, $50,000, put it into a limited partnership, and then every month get back cash flow, right? Like year 1 to year 10 or whatever, however, when they sell or they refinance, then you get your money back. I like
Hmm.
that too because you don't have to do any work. And then I've seen too from some of my clients and then some of the other people I've had on our show as guest speakers, they do this almost like as a profession where they call it
Right.
like
Right.
professional passive investors, where they do that like almost religiously. They're just finding deals to invest in and then making a living that way.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense, especially with the economic condition we're in now with the prices of homes. I mean, I remember when I was in real estate. I'm in Kingston, about 2.5 hours from Toronto, and
Mhm.
we're experiencing some of that market too. The average price in the Kingston Area Real Estate Association at the time was around $250,000. Now it's 725.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and my two boys live in Toronto,
Hmm.
and they're 30, 36, and 34, and they're depressed because they don't feel, although they both have excellent jobs, making 100 grand a year, but they're depressed that they don't think they'll ever be able to afford a home. So it's, and it's still drilled in our heads that home ownership is the best way to go. But I
Yeah.
remember years ago too, seeing when I was in real estate, seeing a thing about renting, and if you rented and then took the money that let's say you were to, instead of buying a house, you took the extra money that the mortgage would have cost you and put that away for 25 years, you'd end up around the same amount of investment. But that doesn't really fit now because the houses are so expensive. There's no money left over to invest, right?
Yes.
It's the house only. So, and then when you add in, 25 years of paying interest payments and then
Hmm.
upkeep on the home, and add it all up at the end, I mean, hopefully you're going to still make some money, but I mean, real estate's up and down too. It's a slower cycle than the stock market, of course. But
Yes.
if you something happens, which happened to me one time, my wife and I had to sell. She lost her job, and we had to sell in a down market, and we didn't actually, we made more money on the home slightly than what we paid for it, but we had put in a bunch of updates that too quickly, basically, and not knowing that she was going to lose her job, so we didn't get that money back. So that was the only time I ever lost on a home. But and I was going to ask you about that, and I'm glad you Brought that up, was about the passive real estate investments. But how about even in the stock markets with REITs and stuff? Do you know any kind of returns on that? I don't really play in that market, but it has interested me.
Yeah, I know very little about that, right? So like passive real estate investing could either be through a syndication, like
Hmm.
somebody has, for example, somebody's a general partner or a sponsor of a deal, they manage it, and then there's limited partners, and then I like that because you're in a sense owning like a percentage of
Yes,
the deal, whereas a REIT is more of like the stock market, like you and
it
thousands of
is.
other people are
Hmm.
putting money in, and then you're buying, properties. The only differences I think are with REITs, if I'm not mistaken, typically longer hold periods than syndications. And then I think that with REITs, and don't quote me on this, I don't think you can claim depreciation through them.
I don't think
You,
so either. Yeah.
yeah, I think you could with syndication. So that's another
Mm.
big part too, is depreciation. What that means is you could decrease your taxable income that you either earned from the investment itself, from the real estate,
Hmm.
and or from the income you earn in different places. So one status that people want to get to is real estate professional status, right, in the United States, and that is because I don't know how it is in Canada. I'm pretty sure it's similar, very similar.
Most of it
If
is
you
very similar. Yeah.
Yep. If you are a real estate professional, let's say you're a real estate agent or a broker, and you also invest in passive real estate deals, well, that income that you get could be off that you could take depreciation against your active income, which is a big deal if you're earning, if you especially if you earn a lot of money. So real estate has a lot of cash flow benefits as well as tax benefits to it.
Yes, absolutely. No, I I'm kind of the kind of person that I mean, I do some self-directed investing, but I'm a firm believer in invest in something that you understand.
Yes.
You know, and I understand a little bit more about real estate, so that's always enticing. But you've got another thing there with the whole life insurance as well, and that probably comes from your insurance background. And believe it or not, also when I got out of high school, I worked as an life insurance salesman actually for about a year and a half, and then that was enough for me. But it was interesting, and at that time, of course, we were trying to sell whole life policies, and which you know, I thought was great. And I ran into a friend of mine from high school, and I sold him a whole life policy. And I had forgotten all about it. And he said, this was just like 6 months ago. And he says, Mike, remember you sold me that whole life policy? I said, I did? Yeah, you did. I bought that from you. It was like next to nothing because he was, 18. And he said, you know how much that's worth now? And I said, really? He goes, like, you saved my bacon. I said, really? I said, wow, that's nice to hear.
Wow.
But yeah. So I mean, I know the term and whole life, the differences and stuff, but maybe you can kind of go over how you can use the proceeds of a whole life policy to get ahead and actually use it as either a down payment or for whatever purposes.
Yeah, and thanks for asking that. There's so many things you could do, right? And what I'm referring to really is more of a concept, not just the product of whole life insurance. It's more of people might know it as the infinite banking concept or the bank on yourself concept. And what it is that, like you said, it's using whole life insurance. And I love how you shared that about your friend who now has all this cash. So pretty much what he, I think he was referring to is you have cash value in the policy, and that cash value has been building up over time. So that's pretty much what infinite banking is. It's having a whole life policy with two kind of avenues. One is the life insurance, like the title of it, and the second is cash value, almost like a savings account inside the policy that grows. It grows based off of your contributions putting into it and the performance of the insurance company, their dividends and things like that go into it as well. And then they have a compounding effect and it grows over time. But really, I guess a lot of people would say, okay, that makes sense. I could put money in a whole life policy. Well, why not just put it in real estate, or why not just put it only in the stock market, or a mutual fund? Why do whole life insurance? And I think it's a valid question. And it has to do with a lot of fundamental reasons behind how life insurance companies operate versus other types of financial institutions. That's, I think, the core to all of this, right? And that is that you go to a bank, right? And you deposit $1,000 in your bank. Now the bank can turn around and then borrow, I think, like 10 times that limit from the Federal Reserve and from different places.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's fractional reserve banking. So when there's a catastrophe like in 2008, it's very easy for everything to crumble because everything is leverage. It's leverage on top of leverage. So it's like a domino effect. However, with insurance companies, everything is kind of the opposite. They are sitting on actual reserves, actual cash that they own, that their policy owners own. And I was reading this book, actually. It's called All About Annuities. I forgot who the author is, but it's called All About Annuities. Okay. And in one section, the author mentions that if there's about 1,900 life insurance companies in the United States, and if you took all their cash value and you pulled it all together, it would be greater than all of the banks and oil companies in the world, all their cash in the world. Yes. So to give you like a mathematical comparison of how much how much cash life insurance companies sit on, that's their reserves. It's not leverage, it's not borrowed from other people. That's their money. So you now, as a real estate investor, as a small business owner, you have to think like, where could my money sit that won't be affected by it, that could still grow, that could still potentially outpace inflation, that's still accessible, but won't be affected by market conditions. You can't put it in the stock market because that's one of the first places to go in economic down cycle, right? Is the stock market.
For sure.
Real estate is safe too. I like real estate a lot, but
Yep.
still, some place that's not affected at all by that, and it's only one place actually. It's whole life insurance. That's the only place where you can put money that won't be affected by any market conditions. That'll still be standing when everything falls. Even when you look at the Great Depression, the families and companies that made it through the Great Depression were the ones that were backed by whole life insurance. And I'm saying companies because companies can also have whole life insurance policies within their reserves. So can families and individuals. So those were the people who made it through the Great Depression. You see companies that have been in business before and after the Great Depression, probably because they were backed by they had the reserves in whole life insurance. So that, in my opinion, that's my favorite part about it. Other things, there's tax benefits, right? There's the guaranteed growth. There's the guaranteed ability to always be able to access the money. So I have multiple whole life policies, right? Let's say I want to participate in some sort of real estate deal or some sort of investment. I can go to the company and then I could typically borrow up to 90% of my current cash value. So just to use even numbers, let's say my cash value is $10,000.
Right.
I can borrow up to 9,000 in this situation and then pay that back on my own terms. And there's no credit qualifications for that. It's not going to show up on my credit. There's no personal guarantee or any types of guarantees except for the policy itself. That's the only collateral. So again, back to like 2008, right? Like one big problem in 2008 was a lot of real estate investors had cash and properties. Yes. The values of those properties went down.
Yes.
Also, their ability to leverage those properties went down as well because banks now are going to give you a loan based off of what the value of the property is, not what you paid for it. And then also banks lend, part of their lending criteria is the economic situation we're in. So if everybody's losing their jobs and the stock market is going down and people are losing 401k balances, the bank is going to underwrite that as well. They're going to take that into consideration when they're giving out loans to people, is the economic situations of everybody. So except for life insurance companies, right? Life insurance companies don't do neither one of those. They're not looking at your personal credit situation, nor are they looking at the economic situations when giving you out loans.
Right. So if you had a whole life, just to explain to folks, if you had a whole life policy, you borrowed against it, let's say you took half of it out, and you passed away a few months later, that other part of the whole life policy still exists, right? The death benefit?
Yeah.
Or
so,
is that do you have to pay back the loan first before the death benefit's paid out?
So let's say that you have like $1 million in life insurance, and then you also have cash value of like $100,000 in cash value. And like you said, you took out you borrowed half of that, so $50,000 loan.
Yes.
And then you passed away a few months ago. What will happen is the insurance company will take that $1 million, automatically subtract the principal of that loan, $50,000 from the million, minus some interest, which is typically simple interest. So they'll give you 1 million minus principal and interest to the beneficiary. So like $948,000, just to like use even number, to give you an idea, 948, that would go to the beneficiary. So the insurance company would take out the principal and interest from that loan automatically.
Right. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure people understood that portion of it too. So I guess that kind of explains the banking on yourself part of what you've been talking about too, like using that as a bank.
Exactly. Yeah. So I have a couple policies, right? So I have the cash value growing in them. I could store money there. I could also, let's say I come across an opportunity, I could finance it through myself. I could become my own banker, borrow against it, and then pay it. And then what's really important is that once I do get that loan, there is no like set structured payback period. It's not like the insurance company is like, here's $10,000. We want $200 a month for the next, 10 years now.
Yeah. Or
you pay that back. I'm sorry.
Or you could default or something and get back.
Yeah.
Credit.
You could just not pay it back really. The only thing is when you don't pay it back, the interest you owe the insurance company keeps growing over time. But sometimes people do that intentionally. Sometimes we've had clients that say, we want to fund this over 10 years. And then at year 10, we want to just do a max loan and then just keep the and never pay back that loan, use that money however we want. And then when they pass away, like later on in the future, the insurance company will take the death benefit minus the principal and interest they loan on that loan.
Right.
So, yeah. So, when I every time I borrow from the insurance company, right, I don't have to worry about like how I'm going to pay it back or what I'm going to do. I don't have to give them any reasons. And there's no negative sides to not paying it back. Really, the only negative side kind of is I would have to pay a little bit more interest on that money. But there's a term called non-direct recognition. And what that means is that when I go to these, and you have to make sure the insurance company has this option within their policies, right? It's called non-direct recognition. And what it means is that when I go borrow the money, the policy is going to keep growing, regardless of the outstanding loan is there or not. In other words, it still grows whether there's a loan out or not. It doesn't recognize the outstanding loan. It's like if I had a property, right?
Yeah.
Let's say the property was worth $500,000, and let's say the property was going to appreciate at 5% every single year over the next 10 years. And let's say I had this property paid up in cash, but I went and I borrowed against it. I took out a loan from a bank, leveraging that property as collateral. That bank loan that I have against the property is not going to affect the appreciation of that property. It's going to affect how much I owe on that property, right? But it's not going to affect the market value, the growth of the policy. It has nothing to do with it. Whether there's an outstanding loan against the property or not, it has no impact on the appreciation of it. And the same is true with whole life, with certain types of whole life policies. Some of them are direct recognition, where when you take out a loan, that's going to impact the growth of the policy. But the companies we use are non-direct recognition. So what that means now is that as a real estate investor, I could borrow money, use it for real estate deals, and keep growing the wealth inside the policies. So now my money is working in two places. It's in real estate and in whole life insurance. So this is where thinking like a bank comes in, right? Is that we're growing money in multiple places at the same time with the same dollars, and then we're able to do more things with that money.
And thinking like an entrepreneur with multiple streams of income, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So do you ever see things like mutual funds? 'Cause I know you're a financial advisor, and self-directed investing or crypto kind of outpacing whole life insurance, or no?
I think it could, right? So the growth of whole life insurance, one of the biggest downsides to it, right? Or not the downside, one of the things that people say are the biggest downsides to it are is the interest rate you earn on it. It's typically very conservative, right? 3 or 4%. But Mike, I don't think that's the point. I don't think the point of whole life insurance is for the interest rate. I think it's for the protection. I think it's for the ability to always have leverage. Those I think are the more fundamental reasons why people should use whole life insurance. But you could also leverage the policy. We've had clients where they'll put money in the policy and then borrow against that. And then with that borrowed money, put it into crypto or put it in the stock market or put it into real estate. So yeah, I think that it's a both and asset, right? It's something you can do with other assets. I think it's, if you had two options, right? Option A or option B, and option A was to put money like in whole life insurance and have it grow. And then option B, put it in the stock market and have it grow. I think option B could outpace option A, but I don't think that's the point, right? I think the point is, how do we do both? Like, how do we have as much protection as possible? How do we grow money? And again, you have to think too, like there's going to be at least one situation, I think, statistically speaking. Read the book Black Swan by Nassim Taleb, and he talks about this. Like, you're going to have at least one point in your life where you might face some sort of economic recession or depression, and you have to be ready for that. It's like you could have, the best business ideas, the best credit, the best income, but then things happen outside of your control.
Absolutely,
so, when that does happen, you want at least one asset that's not affected by that. And in this situation, it's whole life insurance.
Yeah. So like you said, it's not either or, it's both. I mean, why not use a double-edged sword there?
Yes, exactly.
And make money a couple of ways there. So how do you feel about precious metals, and how do they fit into the picture at all? Have you delved into that market at all, or?
I haven't. No, I haven't dealt to the market. I think that kind of from like a logical perspective, like owning actual gold, I think it's who knows if we'll end up going back to that time, right? Where we're actually trading in
Well, I don't think. I mean, I do have some very small investments in a little bit of gold and a little bit of silver, but I believe it's more as of a hedge, than really a true investment. I mean, yes, the prices go up and down. Like, I mean, and you see the stock market's tank, gold goes up. Stock markets are up and gold goes down. But so it's fickle too. But if everything was to crap out, for example, there could be places you could sell that gold to either get something back from that. whether
Mhm.
money, if that ever happened, and the money we're using now is worthless, then
Yes.
they can't just give you money for the gold because the money is worthless, right?
Yes.
So whatever services you could get for their gold might be a hedge for you to survive a little longer, or whatever the case is. But I don't see it as a huge. I've read lots of stuff about, you should have at least this much in gold, this much in silver, but and then you'd have to have it in a vault, of course, and pay fees to keep it there. And can you access it in time if you need it? And it goes on and on. But I just thought I'd throw that precious metal thing at you too, just to see if you had any experience with that.
Yeah, it's a good, definitely good observation. I think it goes back to, like, I love how you said that it's more of a hedge, and than just trying to get rich off of it. It's more of, what if we're in bad economic times and you need to just level out, you need to make yourself whole, like you need to indemnify yourself. I think, yeah, definitely, precious metals should be in somebody's portfolio for sure. Absolutely, I agree.
So if, for example, my sons are in their mid 30s,
Yeah.
so if you had folks that, they've gone to school, debts paid off and all that stuff, they're working, have decent jobs, so they're, let's say, 30 to 40 years old, what would be a good strategy to start with? And let's say they don't have any whole life insurance. Is it getting expensive at those years already to do the whole life thing?
Yeah, so yeah, that's one of the advantages, right? When you're young, you want to do whole life because you lock in the rates at today's dollars. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, for example, I do 10,000 at the age of 30 a year for the next 10 years. Between age 30 and age 40, I'm putting in $10,000. In the future, I'm paying, at today's rate, $10,000, but buying more and more life insurance every single year, because it's not a level life insurance premium. It's going to go up as well every year. It's going to go up. So yeah, that's one of the reasons. And then the second part of it too is that when you buy life insurance, typically whole life insurance,
Mm-hmm.
if you buy it at age 30, that's the rate you're buying. You're buying it at a 30-year-old, let's say male or female. That's the rate you're buying it at, and then that's the rate you keep paying at. But then if you buy at 40, it's going to cost you more and more. It doesn't mean that if somebody's later on in life they can't buy whole life insurance at all. They still could,
Mm-hmm.
but it's always better when you're younger. And the third reason why it's better when you're younger too is because you're dealing with compound interest and compound
Yes.
growth. And with that, you need time, right? So the more time you have to allocate to these policies and grow and compound, the better it'll be in the future.
Yeah, all the growth on the compounding is at the end, right? So
Yes, yes,
that's where it really takes off.
yes.
Yeah, so definitely, I agree with you on that wholeheartedly. So we're getting pretty much to the end, Sarry, and I just wanted to thank you for being here, but also I wanted to see if you could tell folks if they wanted to follow you, or how can they get a hold of you and ask you some questions. So what's the best way for people to do that?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed our conversation. I really enjoyed being here, and hopefully the audience got a lot of value out of this.
I'm sure they
If
did.
if you want to take your financial situation to the next level, you want to solve some financial problems in your life, then reach out to me. You can reach out to me at thinkinglikeabank.com. There's a free ebook we wrote for you, so you can download it for free. It's called the book is called Thinking Like a Bank, and it's free.
Nice.
And you can get it from thinkinglikeabank.com. There's also a link to schedule an appointment with me. You can schedule a free 15-minute call. I'll be more than happy to work with you and see if we're a good fit. And then there's also our podcast called Thinking Like a Bank. So you could kind of learn more about our podcast. And we
I love the name.
are we're launching episode 52 today. So we're 52 episodes in.
Perfect.
And then, yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys, and hopefully probably being back on here in the future.
Yes, no, that would be great. And for everybody listening, definitely we'll have all of Sarry's information below the video, so you'll be able to see that, and also on Soul Mechanic Radio as well. So thank you so much, Sarry, for this interview, and very enlightening. And the whole concept of that was very, very interesting. And I think a lot of people are going to have some questions, and kind of do a double take on how they can get ahead financially in life. And I think that's great.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you again, Sarry. And I look forward to chatting with you again.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay, take care.
You too.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. As always, keep what feels good and dump what doesn't. And remember, live without judgment, give without expectation, and love for no reason. Follow those 3 simple expressions, and you'll be well on your way to an inspirational, intentional, and successful life. Until next time, you're the one.